Good afternoon from Brussels. This is Diane James doing another Facebook live stream, slightly different this time. I'm going to have to read your questions from the paper in front of me, but I'm still going to be as honest and forthright as I always have been. Now, Eric Gianniotti, only one question. When are the wishes of 17.4 million voters going to be acted on? Well, they're not, Eric, because the only way they could have been is if the government had repealed the European Communities Act immediately, sending a very, very clear message to the European Union that we were going, and then the negotiations would have started off on the right foot. So we are where we are. Not much more I can do about that. Billy Morrison, why is it never mentioned that the United Kingdom was taken into the European Union illegally? Well, we are talking about a decision taken back in the early 1970s, long time ago. And in fact, we joined something totally different to what the European Union is now. But I think it's worth reminding people that we had lots of prime ministers after that. Blair, Brown, Cameron, all pledging that they would give the United Kingdom voters the chance to vote on the Maastricht Treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, you name it, and all of those promises and those pledges were broken. But if you want to remind people what happened, there was a very, very low turnout in 1973, and there wasn't a big majority of all voters to actually join up. Gary B, you said, when will the people of Europe be given the opportunity to support or reject the European project? They never will. Only last year, and I've made a point of this a lot of times, one of the leaders in the European Parliament, leader of the Greens, stood up and said that national referendums needed to be banned because they were too dangerous to the European Union project. That is coming down the line, so it could well be that the United Kingdom is the only country that ever gets a referendum to actually leave the European Union. Neil, you've asked how much is your European Union pension. I've tried my best to find out. I think if I'm lucky, I might be due £3,000 per annum. Works out after tax, I guess, around £2,800. So I'll be getting, if I'm lucky, about £200 a month. I'm entitled to that. I have only been an MEP for one mandate, 4 and a bit years, nearly 5, but not the full mandate by the time Brexit happens. But that's, I hope, answers your question. Now, Chris, you've suggested that we get rid of Theresa May and get Jacob Rees-Mogg in. Do you know what? I'd love to see that happen. I actually think Jacob, as a proper and true Brexiteer, would deliver Brexit. But only the Tory party can get rid of her as leader of their party and also Prime Minister. But shall I say, let's watch this space over the summer and see what happens. Now, Pat Bob Fancy, would you agree with me that our government's reluctance to push Brexit is because they're not capable of running the country without Europe telling them what to do? Couldn't agree with you more, Pat. It's well known, and we even had that lovely programme, Yes Minister, that it's the civil service that actually runs a country, and all they try and do is actually interpret political party wishes. For far too long, 4 decades plus, the civil service has been comfortable with the European Union telling them what to do. They actually haven't had to think for themselves in the United Kingdom, and so here we are where we are. Linda, you said, why is no one kicking up a fuss about the money that's gone missing in the accounts? It's quite simply, Linda, because nobody cares here. All the time, Juncker can raise monies for his Juncker fund. Countries can pay up continually to bail out the European Union. Nobody cares where the money has gone and what it is spent on. Ian Stone, you've asked me about fishing rights. Regretfully, there's going to be no return to our fishing territorial rights. It's going to be part of the giveaway that we give in what I'm going to call BRINO, Brexit in name only. We won't be able to enforce our territorial rights. We won't be able to exclude Spanish and French fishermen, let alone anybody else. So that's going to be another aspect of the farce that Brexit so-called will be. David John Jones, you've asked me, why is it taking more than 2 years after the to get Brexit in? It's simply because we don't have a Prime Minister committed to Brexit. Couldn't be more direct than that. If we did, if we'd repealed the Communities Act, European Communities Act, word go, we would be approaching the final year in terms of actually leaving the European Union. John, you've asked that this amount they were to pay towards the EU in this period's budget, will that amount go down the longer we stay in? No, it won't. We're going to be paying the European Union in two ways. The divorce bill, and that's likely every single time they come up with an increment on that, we'll probably have to pay something more on that area. But everything else that the Prime Minister is signing us up to. So from that point of view, the more money that we have to pay in terms of defence cooperation, for instance, security cooperation, all of these areas of so-called alignment, that's going to mean more United Kingdom monies going towards the European Union project. Paul Bradley, you've asked me why the EU spokesmen so nonsensical and obvious in their language and their hatred towards the United Kingdom in terms of Brexit. Well, wouldn't you be? If you're watching your dream being destroyed by this traitor country, the United Kingdom, you'd react the way they're doing. What I think it is, though, it's childish, it's counterproductive, but that's all about how the European Union acts. Peter, you said to me, can you not find out how many MPs and Lords received some kind of funding from the European Union? Well, both MPs and Lords, Peter, they have to make declarations as to where they get donations from. And it needs somebody with a lot of forensics to be able to then trace those donations and keep going back and back and back until we find out if the European Union is behind it. I haven't got the means to do that, but what we could force is a lot more transparency, both in terms of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, in terms of the declarations that are made, so that we really understood where some of those monies might be coming from. Now, Val, you've asked, I'm hearing a lot about extending the transition period. Why are we going down that road? We're going down that road because of big business and big donations from big business to the Tory party. They don't want Brexit. We've heard from the CBI coming out in support of the Labour Party and the Customs Union membership, which is European Union membership continuing in all but name. That's what's keeping the transition period alive, and it means it will keep on being extended until somebody has the honesty and, if you like, the terseness to turn around to big donors, big Tory donors and big business and say, no, no more. David Rita-Jones, you said, as a British citizen, why wasn't parity for all European citizens introduced? Same tax, same access to health, welfare and social care. It's because, Dave, that there are 28 current member states and they represent some of the poorest European countries and some of the richest, and the United Kingdom happens to sit in the richest group. There is no way that those poor countries could afford the sort of standards that the likes of France, Germany, United Kingdom have. And the European Union's doing its very, very best to take money off the rich, a bit like a weird Robin Hood type system, and help the poor countries bring up their standards. And only when there's that degree of equality do I think you would even begin to see what you're suggesting. In some instances, though, it's never going to happen, because some of those member states are so corrupt still that that money, however much is poured in, will never go to the right target. Jill Payne, Diane James MEP, she's got a question for me. There's little, if any, mention about immigration and in particular our borders. What is Amber Rudd doing about it in terms of immigration laws as of March 2019? Amber Rudd's seemingly doing nothing, and nothing will happen, because at the moment there is no brake on freedom of movement of people into the country. And if there's no brake on freedom of movement of European Union citizens into the United Kingdom, there is no immigration policy. So all those citizens from 27 member states, I should say, other than the United Kingdom, they're still going to have the right to come into the United Kingdom as and when they want, as frequently as they want, whether they've got a job or not, and for whatever reason. Terry, you've asked me, are any European Union monies being used to fund the campaigns of Soubry, Blair and others in the Remain camp? Now, Terry, I haven't got any direct evidence that there is. But what I would say is that it would be very, very interesting if we had a look at the donations to the Blair Foundation and if we had a look at the political donations going to Mrs. Soubry. That might give us a bit of a clue. I'm into the last few questions, everyone, for today, but I will go through them, and I'm going to end with some difficult ones from somebody who clearly isn't a Brexiteer. But before that, Angelina, you said, is it factual that all of our public services would have to be put out to tender if we stay within the European Union? and only the lowest bidders would be given the contracts. I believe that this is an EU directive. That would mean everything in our country would then be privatised. Well, I don't see it always being privatised, Angelina. There are some organisations that will pitch for this that are state-owned, French state-owned, German state-owned. But you're absolutely correct. The EU directive says it has to go out to open tender for public services, and if the lowest bidder happens to be Romanian, Spanish, French, Italian, then of course that's where the bid's going to be left. Now, Lloyd Llewellyn, you've asked me 3 questions. I'm going to end them with yours. You said, can you recommend a dating app for Brexiteers who can't get girlfriends? Well, I don't draw any distinction, Lloyd, but I think you can go on Tinder, and I'm sure you'd be able to find somebody there. There must be somebody who would love you. Your second question, if Brexit leads to a resurgence of violence in Northern Ireland, will it still be worth it? Don't see that happening. And the final one, are you proud or disappointed by the fact that the English Defence League support you? I'm disappointed. I'm not happy about that.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.